everyone. How are you doing today? This is a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday, and our conversation is going to be amazing. And I hope you join us from now all the way to the end, because you will have an amazing conversation and you will hopefully participate and join us, because we have an amazing guest tonight. But before we get there, as usual, we're gonna introduce ourselves. JoJo and I will introduce ourselves, and when we come back, we will introduce our special guest. So I am Fatmata, one of the co-hosts and the admin for one of the admins for the Black Diaspora Voices. JoJo?
And I'm JoJo Barron, another admin for Black Diaspora Voices. How are you guys doing tonight?
Perfect. Okay, so we have a special guest, but before we get to her, we want to first do what we normally do, which is have a moment of silence for those we have lost during this horrific pandemic, and pray that people start listening and actually following the recommendations from our health professionals, and give our health professionals a break. They have been working so hard this last year trying to keep us alive. And if we can just do them a favor and do right and follow instructions so that they can have themselves a life, right? And we also want to have a moment of silence for all the deaths that have been happening lately with gun violence around the country, and a moment of silence for the Black bodies that are being killed by police officers, the Black bodies that are being considered as irrelevant, as unimportant. Those Black bodies. Let's please pray for those souls lost. Let's please pray for the families who are suffering. Let's pray for the people who are witnesses to these acts by those who were charged with protecting us. Let's pray for them, and pray that during this month of Ramadan, that we pray for deliverance from all that has been created by man, to say that the body that I was born in, that I live in every day, is somehow less than or not human, and so does not need to matter and does not matter. And I pray that during this Ramadan, I'm able to go within myself and be at peace as I pray to my God, to Allah, to guide me and guide all of us in our spiritual journey during this month, to give us just a moment of silence for all those people who have lost, and for their families, and for those who are witnessing this and are traumatized. And by the grace of God, the trauma would reduce or go away. Just a few minutes, a couple of seconds. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. So our special guest is Robyn Donaldson. You saw a post. I could read it, but I think you all have it. She has an amazing, amazing story. And with all those amazing things, for me, one of the most important, of course, is the fact that we are both alums of the, watch JoJo's face, the
Go ahead, do it.
The Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University.
You think by now I'd be ready for this, right? My eyes got real big, like, what's she about to do? Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. It's not my fault. I went to a terrible school, but anyway.
So, well, my brother would have said,
Terrible schools.
FAU, right?
Went to FAU and UF.
Yeah, so you went to FAU and UF. You went to UF for law school. My brother went to FAU. My two brothers and my sister went to FAU. The owls.
Mm-hmm. So boring. Computer school with no life and no culture.
It's a transient school. That's why it's a transient school.
Yeah, absolutely true. Absolutely true.
That's right.
I lived on campus for about 2 days before I decided I'm out. Let me just drive every day.
So my sister in the fight here has one of the most amazing stories. Not just that, one of the things I love is that she is a yoga instructor, and not just a yoga instructor, but lives it. And so for me, that's really beautiful because we don't get that very often within our communities, right? Within our community. And I think it's very important for us mentally, emotionally, physically to be that engaged. But Robyn, as the post said, she's a JD, like myself, like JoJo, we all went to law school. She worked on the Senator John Ossoff campaign and did the most amazing thing, mobilizing. She was a mobilizing manager for the Community Mobilizer program. And this was a first-time thing, right, Robyn? And it was a grassroots effort that got people out, and she did it. This one right here on your screen, she did this. And it was the most amazing thing. Okay, she managed this. She built President Biden's digital grassroots Facebook group in Georgia, and organized online and offline for the Biden campaign in Iowa and South Carolina. There's so much more to cover about her, but I'll let her tell you a little bit more about herself, about where she's from, and how she got to where she got to, and how she decided to do what she's doing. My sister, Robyn Donaldson.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for inviting me on and allowing me to contribute. I'm here based in, I live now in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm originally from the south suburbs of Chicago. And that's sort of where I guess I cut my teeth politically. My parents are both educators, and they were community organizers in our suburbs. And eventually my dad was elected to mayor, and my mom was elected to school board. She's still on there. She just actually won her seat for like the third or fourth time last week. And so I've just always just been in and around, politics, and just have worked on various presidential campaigns, President Obama's historical 2008 campaign, and then the latest one was Senator Ossoff's runoff campaign, and just living here in Atlanta. I mean, it just has like a spirit of civil rights and organizing and just an amazing history, and you really feel that every day in the city. And of course, we have leader Stacey Abrams here, and the Ossoff, when John Ossoff ran for Congress in 2017, that was the first special election since Donald Trump was president. And that election was really one that I became, heavily involved in, and just, volunteering. That was the first campaign I ever text messaged for. And then of course, Stacey Abrams running for governor, and Congresswoman Lucy McBath, and then, just leading us up to now. So that's kind of how I've just been getting more and more involved here in Georgia. And then just the last couple of years, really being involved on the activism side too. So thank you for having me. And then that's outside of my political world. I have Paths to Peace, and that's a program created. It's a team of trauma-informed yoga educators and psychotherapists and healing artists, and we offer programming around trauma-informed care and mental health and community building and restorative justice. So sometimes it overlaps with politics too. So thanks for having me.
You're on mute.
All I can say is wow. That's all I can say is wow. Isn't she amazing, people? So today we are having my sister here to join us because, as we all know, we have Jim Crowism 2.0 going on right now all over the country. And Georgia, of course, took the bull by the horn and was the first one to sort of get the ball rolling. And as we know, we have what, 43 other states out there, or including Georgia, 43 states out there doing their thing. And every policy that they're putting in place basically disenfranchises Black and brown people and poor people. And it's on purpose. And we wanted to start this conversation with someone who is on the ground, who is part of the grassroots efforts to stop this from happening and has worked hard to do this, but to also explain to us what is happening and what is going on with this. And before I get to Robyn to talk about that, I'm going to pass it over to JoJo to, if you have anything to add, JoJo, to what's happening around us right now, before we start having our conversation with our special guest.
I just want to address that we are going to have, and we keep saying this every week, we're going to have this conversation about Georgia tonight, but this is happening in many, many other states. So you're going to get tired of this group and of our fireside chats, because we're going to look for people on the ground in all 43 states to have this conversation with, because we have to understand how important the vote is to us, particularly to us as a community, and how important it is that we get very, very serious and active. I mean, even though I'm in Florida and Fatmata, you're in Maryland, this fight in Georgia is important to us, as you can see, with Ossoff and Warnock being elected to their positions, the impact it had on the entire country, on policies, on Chuck Schumer having having control for whatever that's worth right now. We have a little bit more work to do in the Senate, and we're slipping control away in the House. So the vote is mighty, mighty, mighty important. Getting these laws overturned or stopped, or I don't know what the answer is, but us getting engaged and involved on this voting issue in all 43 states is very, very, very important, even in the state we don't live in. So that's why you're going to get real, real sick of this discussion, because we're going to keep having it. I don't care if you get sick of it, but we're going to keep having this discussion over and over and over again, because it is important that we involve ourselves in every corner of this country where the fight is. We need to be there, and we need to or lend a hand to the folks on the ground one way or another, either wearing a t-shirt, sending money, making phone calls, or however they ask. We need to make sure we're part of that fight. And I want to thank you, Robyn, for coming in and speaking with us tonight. We're slow on the Georgia fight, but it's not over until the fat lady sings, I guess. So I thank you so much for coming in tonight. And so I'm gonna take it back and we'll get this discussion rolling. And remember to unmute your mic.
I know, right? I always do that. And so everyone who's here knows that. So they forgive me, right?
I should have like a hand signal, like scratch my head.
Just be like, mute something. This is a fireside chat, right? We're not formal.
No, right? That's why you see a t-shirt every Wednesday on me.
We're having fireside chat. See, my problem is this. I equate t-shirts with like that are in the house and doing that kind of stuff. And that's why I'm always having a blouse on.
Mm-hmm.
I won't tell you what I have at the bottom because
Y'all want to see my bunny slippers for real? For real? No, I don't think so.
we really don't. So Robyn, we know that we have this new law that has been signed by the Georgia governor currently. And
Governor.
no, it's true, because we know how he came to be what he came to be. But anyway, so this bill or this new policy, is it really forbidding people from getting food and drinks?
It's doing so much. There is a great thread that I have pulled up on Twitter from someone named, let's see, she's the policy director and research director for Fair Fight, Isosa Osa. And she has a terrific thread that really breaks down the various reasons why these voting laws are terrible. So she has it broken down in several different categories. So there's a hyper criminalization of causing, expanding criminalization policies around the voting process. There's certain power grabs, allowing the Secretary of State and the state legislature to take control of the state election boards. There's county election takeovers. There's also a whole lot of new laws around provisional ballots, the drop boxes, and vote by mail, as well as the runoffs. I mean, they just really threw, the whole kitchen sink in as far as anything that they can do to suppress the vote. So we can talk about different aspects of it, but I did want to just say just two quick things for those people who are, just learning more about voting rights. A great website that Fair Fight has out is Stop Jim Crow with the number 2. So it's stopjimcrow2.com. It's excellent website and an excellent resource for people to check out. And again, it's not just Georgia. It's anywhere from, I think, 43 to 47 states now, and because it keeps going up. But they're really focusing on, with this jimcrow2.com website, which is through Fair Fight, they're really focusing on Arizona, Georgia, Florida, Michigan, New Hampshire, North Carolina, and Texas. And so we're really seeing like really egregious, voter suppression laws there, but they're also being impacted across the country in other states. So it's not just like a red state or a southern state or swing state issue. It's an issue that's happening across the country. So it's important that people know that, and that those of us who are talking about it, that we're framing it in terms of an issue that's happening across the country, and it's not just in a few states. But there are ways people can reach out to their senators and ask that they pass the For the People's Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. So even if you, again, are in a blue state or a northern state or a state that always goes Democrat, it's really important to still call and let them know that you're paying attention, and that we really need them to pass this federal voting rights legislation to even have like a shot at anything happening at the state level. So that's one thing, stopjimcrow2.com. And then another thing that's happening on May 8th, there's going to be a day of action in John Lewis's name, and there's a whole initiative happening across the country. So if you go, it's called the National John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Action Day, May 8th, 2021. And maybe, we can include the links or something underneath this post, but the website is dfadcoalition.org. So you can always go there, but they're going to have motorcades going across the country in different cities. So you can either host your own motorcade, or if you want to, join a motorcade that's already happening in your hometown, you can. So that's on May 8th. So those are just, 2 action items that are coming up that people can, do. And again, just calling your senator and asking them to pass the For the People's Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, huge help. So, so that's, I just wanted to put that out there. But yes, as far as Georgia is concerned, we saw what happened is that we won. Joe Biden won. He's now the president, and Kamala Harris, vice president. I guess they did not think they were going to, be able to, that the Democrats were going to be able to win, and we did. And we did it despite everything was controlled by Republicans in the state. So this idea that somehow someone cheated or, it was stolen or anything else is ludicrous, because we have, Republicans are in charge of everything pretty much in Georgia, except for the Congress and Senate seats and, some other seats. But so they started this lie in this, this false narrative that the election wasn't fair, and, other like the, Governor Kemp, he latched onto it as well as, other politicians. And then they started using this as a weapon, this disinformation and misinformation. And so when we went into the runoffs, they continued this. They did so many different recounts, like 3 different recounts in Georgia, as the runoff race was happening. It did not show any widespread fraud or, any widespread voter irregularities to overturn the result. They fundraised off this, Trump used this. And then, they lost again. There were 100,000 people in Georgia that came out to vote in the runoffs that did not vote during the November general election. So, we expanded the electorate. We had the first African-American senator from the state of Georgia with Raphael Warnock, and then the first senator, Jewish senator, and one of the youngest senators since Joe Biden was a senator, and John Ossoff. So, that was January 5th. And then we see what happened on January 6th with the insurrection. And they continue to perpetuate this lie. And, in Trump and friends, sent those people to the Capitol to cause all kind of, mayhem and commit crimes and everything else. So this has been like, this was all part of this grander scheme of them creating this lie about voter fraud. So then they could, say that they're going in and they're making changes to fix the election so they're fair now. And that's what they're doing with these voting rights laws. And so it's really, unfortunate. And I've even heard, from people that, certain elected officials, Republicans within the state legislature here in Georgia know, these lies are not true, but they want to satisfy their base and make it seem like they're doing something, to take care of the voter fraud. So that's kind of the backstory of how we got here to this point with these voter suppression laws. So
just to be clear, so the laws that were changed, right? That they changed. Is it true that the reality is that was put in place by Republicans, and all the policies that were there initially that led to the 2020 election and the runoffs, they were all election policies that were put in place by Republicans, including Republican governor, Republican legislatures, the legislature, and it for many years, right?
Yes. I mean, for such a long time, Republicans tended to use vote by mail. So, a lot of these, so pretty much these different voting rights laws were, in place, to support them or, support their side. And then when, the Democrats, here in Georgia, started becoming more savvy and working around, any obstacles, they were able to still, turn out the vote and be able to stay within the law, and do it. And so, that's part of the reason now they want to change the laws. So like, for instance, just the idea that they're trying to criminalize the voting process, for some people. So for instance, like a lot of people have heard about, like line warming. So for instance, if we're here in Georgia and, there's 5-6 hour lines, which is usually in Black communities and communities of color, or even communities where there's a lot of college students or young people, people are standing in 5-hour lines to cast their vote in one place. And then in another place, which, usually might be more white or more wealthy or affluent, people are going in and out within, 15, 20 minutes. So obviously something like long lines can deter people from voting, because sometimes people just don't have that time to stand in line, or they don't have childcare, or, they have to bring their children to the polls. So if someone is standing in line for 5-6 hours, organizations have given out water, or food, and they're not going around giving it out, just like asking what party you're from or who you're voting for to get it. They're giving it to everyone. So again, a lot of these laws are impacting people, from all kinds, Republicans, Democrats, independents, et cetera. So, for them to now say that it's going to be a misdemeanor if a person gives out water, or an organization gives out water, or food to people in line, that is just crazy, because we're supposed to be a democracy here, and everyone who is a citizen and is over the, the voting age has a right to vote and have their voices be heard. So yeah, they're making it a crime to give out, and then they're also making it a crime to accept food or water from someone, from someone else. They're also creating a misdemeanor for voters if the voter allows someone other than them to mark their ballot at home. So for instance, if you have a senior citizen, maybe who has issues with their eyesight, or, has arthritis and has issues, filling in, the bubble or something on a ballot. And if their, daughter or son or somebody in their family helps them with it, they now want to make this a misdemeanor for that person to be able to assist them in voting. And then let's see what else. They also are making it a new felony for anyone that witnesses someone else marking their absentee ballot at home, unless they have some kind of like authorized assistant or a child. So now it's a felony for someone to witness someone else marking their absentee ballot. Also, they're making it criminal to a misdemeanor for handling a completed application for someone, or they're also making it a misdemeanor to photograph your absentee ballot or someone else's. And then then they're doing this thing where they want a new fraud hotline, which is like complete voter intimidation. So they want this fraud hotline when, again, it has been proven over and over again, not by Democrats, but by Republicans who, are running the state and running the electoral process. They're making it, they're creating this fraud hotline so people can anonymously give a tip, and accuse someone of something. And then that can result in the Attorney General launching an investigation and prosecuting that person within 3 days. So, I mean, that's just crazy. So anyone can just call and accuse someone of this supposed voter fraud, whatever that really is, that has never, been shown to be true. And then, a case can be opened. So, I mean, that is like the ultimate voter intimidation. And, our Governor Kemp, he has a history, as well as, others in the state legislature. Governor Kemp has had a history of using law enforcement to intimidate Black voters, in having the police follow voters home, and having police go to people's houses and inquiring if they, have been registered and things like that. So, he does that, and it's just really unfortunate that now, people have to be concerned about being charged with a crime for trying to vote. It's insane.
Have you heard from the Attorney General in DC? Like, what do they plan on doing about this?
Yes, I know right when the law actually, our Governor Kemp signed some of these voting rights into law, I know there's so many lawsuits that are happening. Fair Fight already has a lawsuit from the 2018 election, not so much about, overturning the result or anything, but some issues around, vote by mail and various things. So that's actually going to be heard by the Supreme Court, I think, this summer. And then Black Voters Matter here in Georgia, and the Georgia NAACP and various voting rights groups across the country are bringing lawsuits. So I know the Brennan Center, that they're another great organization. You can sign up. I think it's called like Open Docket or something, but they'll send you updates about what's happening. And then Mark Elias is one of the lead attorneys, bringing some of these lawsuits as well. So, I mean, the information it's so overwhelming and it's moving so fast. I mean, I'm just still even wrapping my head around Georgia's laws, but I know there's, again, all those states I named earlier are dealing with the same things.
And that's the Brennan Center for Justice?
Yes.
Got it. All kinds of links in the chat room tonight. And here we go with this one.
It's important.
Directly to defend our elections, one of their issues that they're following and then working with. So I've put their information along with the two other links you mentioned, the National John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Action Day and Stop Jim Crow 2.2.com. All three links are in the chat tonight.
That's great. So, okay, another thing was that Governor Kemp basically said that, all these long lines that we're complaining about, they're happening in Democratic strongholds, and they're the ones in control of elections. Can you clear up for people to understand who has control of the electoral process in the state of Georgia? Who determines how many voting machines are going to be there, how many voting polls are going to be opened in any particular county? Like, who makes those decisions? Who decides all that stuff? Who decides all that stuff?
Yeah, so I know one of the things that's happening now is that these new laws that they're trying to take over any oversight from the county, and they want to allow the GOP controlled body to be able to replace county boards of elections and local election officials. And there's so many different reasons why there can be long lines. Some of it has to do with just even with funding. And that's something that's happening too, is that, a lot of these counties, they may not have the budget in order to carry out an election and, have it run smoothly and everything. So what often happens is the county might apply for a grant from an outside organization to subsidize, whatever, costs that they're not able to cover to carry out the election. So for instance, like when you think about this pandemic happening, that was not something, anybody saw coming. And so, and then the fact that, senior citizens, you were really at risk, with the virus and everything. So a lot of the poll workers who maybe normally had been, more senior citizens, a lot of them did not want to come in to, work these elections, understandably. So then they were trying to find other people. So then that means those people have to be trained. And then you have to think about all of the safety precautions and having hand sanitizer or gloves or whatever the case may be. So that's extra money, that it takes to carry out these elections. So in the past, in 2020 and 2021, many counties had applied for a grant and they were able to subsidize, those costs and have these elections. So now what's happening with these new laws, they don't want counties to be allowed to apply for any kind of outside funding. So pretty much like if that county doesn't have enough money to, let's say, have voting hours on the weekends, or if they need extra, people to work or whatever the case may be, they can't, it's like, oh, well, just use the money that you have. You can't get any third party funding support. So that can mean the difference between, having 10 people working somewhere to 2 people working somewhere. So of course that's going to cause, longer lines and, just more, less of a, efficient process. And then what's even crazier is that some counties, if they can't get this outside or third party funding, and someone comes in and let's say they say, we want to have a recount or we want a second recount and things like that, that can actually bankrupt the entire county. So, I mean, so it's crazy. But what they're doing with these power grabs here in Georgia is that they're trying to take away any kind of control that the state election board or, the county might have. So now they want to take away any kind of judicial oversight of the state election board and then have it be replaced with, some kind of board that's going to be appointed by these Republican legislatures. So it would allow the state election board to be replaced. Actually, the entire county board of elections with a single individual, of course, at their choosing. It would also allow the state election board to use the results of any audit or any investigation from the past as a reason to remove county board officials. So, when you think about it, like people, vote for the Secretary of State or they vote, for people in these seats. And, now they want to be able to take the power away from those elected officials on these county board commissioners and people who are, elected to do this work. They want to be able to just replace them and, supersede and put the person they want in place. So if this would have happened, earlier, there could have been somebody that would have come in and, as Trump was saying, find him those 11,000 or 12,000 votes that he lost by.
Been found. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And it would have been found, and poof, we have 11,000 new votes to cover the former guy. I mean, this is, so we can't win because of our ideology. Let's win by cheating. Let's win by preventing people from voting. Because what I'm hearing is basically they've decided to take all the power away from the people. The people no longer have the power to elect the officials. They no longer have the power to determine who runs their state, their county, their state elections, their county elections. They're taking that away from the people of Georgia. They're basically saying, you don't matter. Only thing that matters is our power and our ability and our desire to hold on to this power that we have. And you are not going to take it away from us, people of Georgia, is basically what I'm hearing, is basically what I'm seeing that Georgia is doing, that Brian Kemp is doing, that the entire Republican legislature is doing. And they're telling every single Georgian, you don't have anything. This is not your state. This is our state. And we are going to run it the way we want to run it. Because that's what I see. JoJo.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what's happening. And it's going to continue to happen as long as, I mean, the gerrymandering that's been happening over the last, I would say 40 years is the reason why we're in this mess right now. And it's a real problem. How do we overcome these overwhelmingly majority Republican legislatures that are doing this? I mean, here in Florida, I think they increased their numbers in both chambers in Tallahassee. And there's a huge issue down here where a seat was taken clearly by fraud, so much so that the people involved have all been arrested, but the fraudulent candidate is now sitting in that seat, increasing their numbers. So how do we fix that? If on the legislative level, We've got an overwhelming number of Republicans sitting in those seats, making these decisions that are anti-democracy, anti the people, and in favor of their power grab. I mean, what is the solution? It's very, very, very frustrating, extremely frustrating.
And I have a lot of love again for Florida. My dad was originally from Florida, and I have a lot of family there. Went to college there, and then organized for Obama down there. And I'm actually, a lot of my friends who are still active in various Democratic groups have been reaching out. And so I'm going to be doing some talking to various groups next week. But we just have to fight. I mean, that's really what it is. And I just know for me, when I think about with voting, and it's one of the reasons Georgia's been successful, and the candidates who did win across the country were successful, is because they were willing to expand the electorate. So, when you think about it, yes, there's a lot of people who voted, they broke records and everything this past year, but there's millions and millions of people who do not vote, for whatever reason. And it is just a matter of finding those people and, talking to them, listening to them. And like the motto that President Obama and other organizers have used is respect, empower, and include. And if people really follow that, you can expand the electorate and bring people in. And that's what is going to be needed in places like Florida. And, and the Republicans, they will, at times, especially in Florida, because they know if they can just keep Florida or keep Texas, they're in the game, But if we can take Florida away or Texas away, they're really going to be on their heels to be able to compete, which is, again, why they're changing these laws. But, we have to fight back, and we have to keep expanding the electorate. And, by doing that, again, respecting people and finding them where they are, listening to them, and not just going in saying like, hey, you got to vote for this person, or, but really understanding what issues they care about, and then connecting their voting power to those issues. And, it's going to take some time, but, we just have to keep chipping away. But definitely the one thing we can do for sure right now, again, is contacting your senators and asking that they pass the For the People's Act, as well as the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And pretty much the way Stacey Abrams has explained it in various interviews is the For the People's Act, that addresses, the present moment, as far as how to combat voter suppression. And then the John Lewis Voting Rights Act really kind of protects and helps us for things that are happening in the future, with voting. But definitely with the For the People's Act, it would require no excuse voting by mail for all federal elections. It would require that states transmit absentee ballot applications to all registered voters for federal elections. It would require that voters be allowed to return absentee ballots by mail or at a polling place, or a tribal designated building or drop box, or a state or federal elections office. It would require a minimum of 14 consecutive days of early voting for all federal elections. And it would require that states accept a sworn written testimony or written statement in lieu of a documentary ID in most causes for all federal elections. And so, why it's important is if we're having a federal election for president, it does not make any sense that Oregon can have they can vote by mail, ballots just automatic. I mean, I don't know all the specific details about Oregon, but from my understanding, like Colorado and Oregon, some of these places.
Colorado is 100%. Colorado is 100%. Like you can literally, everyone can mail in their stuff. There are a few people who might decide to go in, but you basically get a ballot in the mail.
Yeah. I mean, I have voted by mail in the past, but this was my first time in June. Was of last year for the primary. That was my first time voting by mail in Georgia. And, after that, it was very successful and everything. I just said, oh yeah, this is how I'm voting from now on, because it's easy. It's a lot easier, and so it doesn't make sense that, some states are, have some voting rights laws. Other states have something different. It's hard for these states to vote, and then it's effortless and easy for other states to vote. that doesn't make any sense for these federal elections. There needs to be like a baseline for everyone, and have a fair election for everyone to participate in the process. So that's pretty much what the For the People's Act is attempting to do, and that will offset some of these state laws for that are under for federal elections. So that's why it's so important to sign these petitions and contact your senator directly and ask them to pass For the People's Act, which President Biden does support.
Robyn, can we go back just for a second? We hear a lot about voter ID laws. What is the problem with asking somebody for their license? Why not?
Sure.
Just to make sure the right people are voting.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's because they know how to like take these things and then frame it in a certain way, because it sounds very, logical. However, some states, you don't need your ID, you have to, fill just got my Georgia state ID, I think last year, because I was just like, terrified about and concerns about, any voter ID laws. In some places, people, they can't afford the voter ID fee, or they can't get to the DMV. In one situation, I know in North Carolina, it was a movie called Rigged, and it talked about some of the voter suppression laws in North Carolina. And in North Carolina, a DMV closed. And so like the closest DMV was, maybe 30 or 40 miles or something from the city. And so if you don't have a DMV, you can't go get your license or your ID. So then that just creates like another barrier, that's happening. So it's not like when a person comes up to vote, this is their first time, where you're seeing their name and you have to do all this verification and everything. That's already taken place through the voter registration process, and so on and so on. So yeah, some people maybe don't have a voter ID. And then now what they want to do is require people to send a copy of their ID with their absentee ballot request, and send a copy of your voter or your ID or license with your ballot. So then that kind of opens it up again to, what if someone steals your mail? Now all your personal information is with this ballot, your license, everything else, your birthday, everything. So then that puts,
even
data.
than that, what if you don't have a printer at home?
What if you don't have a printer, or what if you have a printer and it doesn't work that day, or now you have to go get ink or paper, all of these things are barriers, and it's just making it harder and harder, for people to vote. So yeah, so that's, one of the issues with the IDs. Another thing that's happening too that, I don't know if it gets talked about enough, but the drop boxes. Now the new law in Georgia will completely eliminate over 300 hours of drop box availability relative to 2020. So this will significantly reduce the total number of drop boxes. And why that's important is because, when you're voting by mail, let's say you work from 9 to 5, you can just drop your ballot into a secure drop box, like it's, nailed down to the concrete. There's cameras and everything. So if you, work odd hours, you can drop your ballot off of this drop box anytime. And so, that was something that was very successful, and during the 2020 and 21 elections and everything. So now they want to eliminate drop boxes. And so in some places, they're going from hundreds of drop boxes, like in Fulton County, they're going from hundreds of drop boxes to like 8. So, and even like, I think that there's a place in Texas as well that happened, where if you have a county of, almost 1 million people or hundreds of thousands of people. And then you have just a couple of drop boxes across the county, so then people have to now drive, maybe an hour away or 45 minutes or whatever, just to drop off your ballot versus just being able to go, across the street a couple of blocks or something to drop off your ballot. So now they want to restrict the hours. And, before it was 24 hours. You can drop your, it's like a mailbox and you just drop off your ballot. Now they want to restrict it to from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. But that's the only time you can drop off your ballot. So obviously, if you work between 9 and 5, you can't drop it off during the week. Or if you work on, the weekends and, those hours are available and you can't drop it off on the weekend, and then they want to move the drop boxes inside the, wherever you're voting. So, before it would be, outside, you can come anytime. Now, if it's inside, again, you can only drop it off during business hours. So I foresee there's probably going to then be now long lines to drop off your ballot if you can only drop it off, certain hours and at maybe a few places versus hundreds of places from before. So
I mean, but this doesn't sound crazy to like normal people who want to vote Republican. They don't think, how am I going to vote for who I want to vote for? If I work from 9 to 5, how am I going to vote for Kemp?
yeah.
I mean, how does this make any sense to anyone who wants to vote?
I feel like they're they don't care. They're going to lose, some of their voters on this, as far as, their supporters might still vote for them, but it's going to impact their voters too. But they're that desperate, to potentially impact, a small portion of their voters if it means that they can impact a large portion of our voters. Mm-hmm. So, and then they want to, instead of having like a camera, surveillance of the drop box, that's how it used to work. Now they want to have some kind of in-person security. So again, that means you got to hire someone, you got to pay them. That's more money that'll be coming, from the county to hire and pay somebody to be there and to train them and everything else. So this is what desperation looks like. And then, the people who do buy into this, who are Republicans, a lot of them are buying into that narrative that it was not a fair election. I think they said like 40% of, I don't know if it was Georgia Republicans or Georgia Republicans, or if it was across the country, but it's like a number like 40% of the people, of those people, they don't believe the election, was fair.
Across the country, I think it's over 50% of Republicans, or 60%. I saw it. Republicans believe that the election was not fair, and that the former guy actually won the election, and that President Biden is a fake president.
Yeah. And they were, and Trump has been, he was saying this even when, in 2016, when they would say, would he accept the results, and he would say only if he won, and things like that. So, this actually leads me to another topic. I know, I don't know if I had mentioned it to y'all, but I think it's important to just touch on is the use of disinformation and misinformation. That is what the Republican Party embraces, and that's why they're able to have some success, especially if you have like a Fox News backing up, and then Rush Limbaugh and all those people backing up these false claims. But disinformation, for people who don't know, it's information that is deliberately is false, and it was created deliberately to cause harm to people, or a group or organization. And then you have misinformation, where it's information that's false, but it wasn't necessarily created with the intention of causing harm. And we see it, we definitely can see misinformation happening, on both sides and in all situations. But the disinformation is definitely something that the Republican Party is very good at using. So the reason they were saying that Fair Fight did a whole thing about disinformation, why it's effective, is because it's hard to make people forget, information that they've heard. And then the more you repeat it, it becomes, our brains start to take it as truth. You know, like Karl Rove, a Republican operative, used to always say, you know, the more you say a lie, people will start to believe it. And it's true. And then trying to debunk misinformation is difficult, because it's like, once it's in someone's head, you know, that's, you know, it's hard to get the brain to now debunk it. So it's so important that, you know, all of us on social media, that we really don't share, you know, disinformation or misinformation. Instead, it's important that we highlight the truth, which is that people have voting power. That's why they're working so hard to take it away. And we just have to really keep reminding people of that. And just, if you are gonna, you know, share information, make sure it's coming from like a trusted voice, you know. So I always look to Fair Fight or Stacey Abrams when it comes to voting rights information, or, you know, Mark Elias or the Brennan Center. And we just want to really alleviate any kind of confusion. So I know sometimes people will post on social media and they'll post something that's like, we know is disinformation. And then in their minds, they're like, I'm trying to tell people that this disinformation is out there. Like, no, that's not what we want to do.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, we want to alleviate that confusion and just reinforce, you know, the democratic norms around, you know, democracy and motivating people to participate. Because a lot of times, you know, we think we're sharing that, and then it's like, it's suppressing the vote, when in the terms of like, people feel like this is too complicated, I don't want to be involved. And then some people won't come out and vote, because that's what they want people to do, is not show up and make it a hard process for them.
Yep, I totally agree. That's, even the 2020 election, I had to put a moratorium on my page. Basically, if you are going to comment on anything on my page with disinformation or misinformation or false equivalencies, I will delete any comment that you make, because all it's doing is depressing our vote. You know, it confuses people, it gets people questioning and all these things that are unnecessary, you know. But one of the things I've always sort of this disinformation and misinformation, and people who are affected, and I'm not talking about so much people who may be confused. To some degree, I think people like Fox News and all that, they're sort of talking to the choir, right? Preaching to the choir. Wherein, you know, a big part of me believes that the Fox TV people, or the people who watch Fox or read the Daily Caller and Blaze and all those things, the reason why they're able to be sort of guided is because they already think that way. And so the information is just sort of validating them. So if it's validating them, they feel good about it. And so it's easy for them to sort of pick that up and run with it, because that's part of their nature. That's part of who they are. And right now we have these elected officials who people used to say were so scared of Trump, and they're doing all the things because they're afraid of Trump, and so on and so forth. And I remember telling people, stop it. They're not afraid of Trump. If they are, it's a small part of it. It's a huge part of it is we have somebody who's going to give us power. We have somebody who agrees with what we've always thought and believed, and he's going to make it happen. And that's it. So right now, all the things they're doing, he's not here. They could literally put him to the side. If the media doesn't talk about this guy as much, if the Republican leadership start ignoring him, he will disappear, because all he talks about is hate and lies. And if nobody covers him, guess who does not hear about him? Honestly. And
Sorry, go ahead.
But the Republican leadership want him, because there's a purpose for him. He's serving. He's doing something for their party, for their power, and he's making it happen for them. And he fits in with what they've always wanted. What they've always wanted to do, what they've always done behind closed doors, but now they feel comfortable doing it outside in the open, saying it, acting on it, and saying things like cancel culture, but what they really mean is you are putting other people who don't look like me in front of me, or they're saying things like replacement, they're going to be replaced. Replaced by whom? You came here and took over somebody else's land. So it's like all these code words, and now they can say it freely. It's what they've always done. It's what they've always said. And I think that's where we are. And I always feel like if we continue to skate around this issue and this topic, we will forever remain in this push and pull, and we are always going to be fighting from the back. And we just need to admit where we are as a country, where our leaders, especially our Republican leaders, where they are right now, and fight them based on where they are, not where we think they should be. And that's where I am right now.
I don't have any desire also to pull people over to my side. I think we've had this discussion 1,000 times, Fatmata. I'm done with the idea of, and I think that this was one of Buttigieg's issues, is he was trying to bring people over who were Republicans, but apparently had issues that can be solved by the Democratic platform. So let's talk to them, and let's speak to whatever those issues are, and longstanding voting Republicans, and bring them over. And I think it's a better sell to speak to folks who've never voted before, who have long felt disenfranchised or not part of the system, and go to those people who have long felt that, I'm not going to vote at all. This is not my fight at all. And maybe speak to them. But those who have been long-standing, clearly racist, clearly having these particular ideals, speaking to them and getting them to our side is not where the fight should be. Is not where our energy should be expended. It's a complete and total waste of time, a waste of time by the party for many generations now. And I hope they see that really going to into the pot that of people who are younger, new voters, who appear to be progressive, who may feel not part of the system, but are more inclined maybe to vote a particular way for whatever demographic reasons, go to that pot instead. Because going to the Midwest and saying, well, you have our common ideals, you've been voting Republican, but you have Medicare, you're in the bottom of the barrel. Coming to the South, you're in the bottom of the barrel in education, healthcare, all these issues, and expecting some kind of a different outcome from them. They're not voting, and therefore has nothing to do with anything related to their social situation. And I think that's another thing that we have to understand and realize as people in leadership positions, thinkers, talkers. There are a whole swath of people who vote a particular way, even though their teeth are falling out of their mouth, and they don't give a damn about any of those issues that we're talking about, anything on the Democratic agenda that might help them. That's not why they're voting Trump and Republicans over and over and over and over and over again. But having said all that, I think that one question that I have for you, Robyn, is like, what is the next step? Because at the end of our second to last question to all of our guests, there's always going to be something along the lines of, what's the solution? Because we want to be solution oriented. We could be pessimistic for the whole hour, but we want to end our second to last question on somewhat of a positive note of, what do you want from us? What can we do? And how do we push the conversation closer to removing these voter suppression laws?
Yes, absolutely. Well, one thing I always tell people, if you have not had a chance to watch the documentary All In, the Fight for Our Democracy, it's through Amazon Prime, but it's even worth just signing up for like a trial of Amazon, watching it, and then you can, end your subscription or whatever to Amazon. But it is, or find someone who has an Amazon Prime account, out there. But it's, as far as I know, it's only on Amazon. You might be able to try to find it on YouTube, but they usually take it down, right away. But the fight, All In, the Fight for Our Democracy, it really chronicles some of Stacey Abrams' governor's race, but then it really goes in depth into the history of voting rights in this country. And I know a lot of people who maybe follow it or the civil rights movement think that they know, a lot about it, but it really goes into, details and historical, stories and things like that just are now, coming to the light. And so it really just talks about like the history of this country. I mean, definitely trying to stop Black voters from voting, as well as Native Americans, women, and it really also talks about the violence, the racial violence, in particular, the racial violence towards Black people when it comes to voting. And, there was a time, when I think it was around like the Reconstruction era where, we had Black senators, a lot more Black senators than we do now. And then we had a high voter turnout with Black people across, the South Mississippi and South Carolina and Georgia and these various places. And then over time, between lynchings and killings and things like that happening, as well as like these laws changing, it completely wiped out any representation that Black people had in the Senate and Congress, and then it also created this culture of fear and intimidation, especially in the South, for Black voters. And so anyway, All In, the Fight for Our Democracy, the documentary just really outlines it. And it came out, I think, last year, and various Facebook groups have done various watch parties of the film. Maybe we can, do one with your group. But it really kind of, if you're into politics, you're into voting rights or anything, you really need to watch this documentary, because it will tell you exactly what the fight is and who we're dealing with here. And so that's one piece of homework, is watching All In. And then there's also, it was called, I think it's called Suppression. It's, again, this is another, you can find this one on YouTube, or Suppressed, sorry. The movie's called Suppressed. It's on YouTube, and it's a little short. It's not, I think it's like 30 minutes or so, but it's a little short film that really chronicles how the voter suppression laws and things, all of those things worked in Georgia when Stacey Abrams ran for governor. So it's just like, things that you're not even thinking about that are put in place, these barriers to help people to prevent people from voting. So I would definitely recommend those two films, All In and Suppressed. And then I would say, as far as all the laws that are happening in these various states, going to stopjimcrow2.com, and just really starting to like read and familiarize yourself with some of these new laws, because there's going to be a lot of voter education that's going to have to take place going forward, to number one, just telling people about these new laws that are in place. And then there's going to have to be a lot of education about how to circumvent some of these laws. Like someone was even saying, I think it was Helen Butler, a very prominent Black woman organizer in Georgia who's been around for a long time, but she was saying, like, if we have to find a way to work with a corporation like a Kinko's or FedEx or something like that, and maybe having like a day or an initiative where people can just go in and get free copies of their voter IDs, or something like that. Like, we're gonna have to figure out ways around some of these laws. Mm-hmm. So again, the stopjimcrow2.com, Fair Fight's website, they'll signing up for their emails, and then staying abreast. So, when it comes to share this information with your family and friends or on social, you can, and you'll have, the correct information. And then I would say, definitely contacting your senators and asking that they pass the For the People's Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. There's all kind of postcard writing campaigns and petitions, or just making a phone call or a visit, because a lot of them will be home, this summer. So, if they do have a town hall, going there, or, whether it's, or if it's on Zoom, and just letting them know that you care about voting rights and that we need them to take this action. And then I would say, getting involved, whether it's if you have like a state party or, any kind of Democratic party, if that's your thing. I know everyone's not a party person, but they have, voter protection teams there, within a lot of these Democratic party, state parties now, or just getting involved with like an organization like, Verified or Working Families Party. I mean, there's so many, different organizations like Beto O'Rourke has his Powered by the People. But any grassroots organizations that out there who are, addressing voting rights, and a lot of them are. So getting involved that way. And then I would just say, continuing to participate in encouraging people to register to vote. And then, like I said, May 8th is the day of action for the John Lewis voting rights. And I'm sure there's going to be more, more days of actions happening, this spring and summer. So just pretty much, learning as much as you can. And like I said, those two films definitely give you a great context of what we're dealing with here. And then, just getting involved in some way. I mean, even just getting on some of these email lists, they'll keep you up to date, some of these organizations, and, they have all kind of textathons and phone banks and postcard writing. So just, doing what you can. I just believe in like meeting people where they're at, and, you may only be able to sign a petition, but that matters, so the main thing is do something to fight. Just don't sit back or, not do anything that's the main thing, I would say.
And the mayor, she did something over there, right? She issued out an executive order. Can you tell us, we're sort of at the end, but can you tell just a little bit about, so we can know what she's doing to sort of try to counter some of this while we're fighting against it?
Yeah, honestly, I just came back from like a little short vacation.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, I know she did, Mayor Keisha Lansbaum's here in Atlanta. I know she did sign some kind of executive order around voting rights, but I haven't gotten caught up on it yet.
Because I think I think she did something basically to help people get educated on getting their voting IDs, voter registration IDs, all kind of different things, and teach people about what this law is on top of that. So she's probably I think she's trying to do some proactive steps to help, just in case, because you have no idea what's going to happen with the courts, right? Because we're going to go to court, but we all know how fickle-minded it can be. And we all know how much these courts have been packed by Republicans, because I'm really tired of people talking about Democrats wanting to pack the courts. Republicans have packed these courts like crazy with people who are not even qualified to hold these seats. Some people who've never even been, who don't even understand the trial process. But that's a different topic altogether.
Yeah, one thing I did want to mention too is right now there's a lot happening with corporations. There's mixed views. Some people believe, we need to boycott some of these corporations. And then, there's people who believe, like, I know Stacey Abrams, she was saying, like, instead of boycotting right now is to try to get these corporations to stay and, don't just pull your business out of Georgia, but stay and fight. So I know, like, the film industry is huge here, here in Georgia, and Jordan Peele, I know there was a point where he was thinking about pulling out some productions, and then Stacey Abrams and Verified, were in talks with him, and he decided to stay, and then he, donated money, to Verified, to help fight, what's happening. So, it's a mixed bag. I'm kind
Will Smith pulled his production out.
Yeah,
Apple and Will Smith pulled their movie.
Yes. And so, I think we need like a little bit of both. I definitely know with like the film industry that definitely, a lot of those jobs are, with people of color, or, some of the jobs, and then, but there are like 200 corporations who have signed on and have started speaking out. And there's a lot of Black corporate leaders, across the country who all signed on to a letter. So if you have a business or you're in that corporate sector, there is an initiative, Civics Alliance. They are working, they're nonpartisan and Civics Alliance. They believe in working with companies and businesses to help increase access to the ballot for employees. And so they work, they'll offer different things that corporations can do to educate, their staff and employees about their voting rights. And then, of course, it's like the power of the dollar. So, if all of us are supporting these companies, we need them to support us by supporting our democracy. So there are, like I said, about 200, like Patagonia and Under Armour, and I think Delta Airlines came around. So there are various corporations. Yeah, right. Yeah, some of them have.
What about Coke?
Yeah, I think Coke did come around, and because we were boycotting at Coca-Cola for a week or two. So we want to just keep encouraging these corporations to also speak out. And, a lot of them were speaking out when everything happened with George Floyd being killed, and they were committing to a lot of initiatives and things like that. But we can't have them give millions of dollars over here, but then for a good cause, but then give millions of dollars to these politicians who want to eliminate access to the ballot and weaken our democracy, because that's in the end that's what it's doing, is weakening our democracy.
Wow. We could do this for hours because there's so much to talk about and you have so much knowledge. But we know that we can't hold people for much longer. That's the only reason why we're stopping. Because oh my goodness. So which means, JoJo, we will have a part 2.
Actually, like a part 2 through 43.
Well, I'm talking about with Robyn.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think we could talk about, over time, if you want, like looking at definitely these battleground states in the Sun Belt, because the future of the Democratic Party and, well, 2 things, and I promise we'll wrap up because I could talk about this forever, but 2 things I wanted to say. One is that we're moving towards a minority majority country, I think by like 2035 or 40, but what's happening is we're already starting to see that in some counties. So like here in Georgia, Gwinnett County already looks like what in Georgia, it's already starting to look like what the country is going to look like in, the next like 15, 20 years. So, yeah, there's going to be more people of color, population wise than white, Americans and everything. So, but we don't want it where it turns into like South Africa apartheid, where, the minority is in power and there's no power, with the majority of the people. So, there's, organizations and there's people who are very well aware of this and they're planning, for this, and they're very much against it. I don't know what the organization or the website, but there is a website out there that has like a countdown clock until this country becomes minority majority in the next 15, 20 years. But so that's one thing that we're seeing happen. But as far as the Democratic Party is concerned, the future of the Democratic Party and the way everything is trending and the demographics and everything else, it really is going to be the Sun Belt. So it's going to be North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and Arizona, and then even South Carolina and Mississippi. They have some traction there if there's, enough investment, as far as the votes, but that is who is kind of, moving the needle towards with the Democratic Party. The Midwest, obviously, is still important, but they're kind of starting to trend older and whiter. So it really is, the future is in the Sun Belt. So maybe we can talk about, some of these different states, because it's the same. Again, Georgia and Arizona are just the pilot program. They're trying to bring this to all these other, Sun Belt states over time and everything. So, and we're so close, again, to flipping Texas, Florida, it's just going to take a little, pulling together in Florida, but absolutely be flipped, again. And, there's a lot of, even North Carolina. And so, so we're very close, and that's why they're coming along and changing these laws and, just trying to shrink our democracy and weaken it. So we just have to fight back and, have short-term plans and long-term plans for what we're doing.
Great. So JoJo, do you want to do your question?
It's the same one every week. Can't think of anything different. What's something great that's happened for you, Robyn, in the last week?
Oh my gosh, I took a little vacation. Yeah, because it was like 4 years of, trauma and in the resistance, with Trump. And then, it was such a wild 2020 election year. Well, really the primary, because there were so many Democrats running. Mm-hmm. And so, just that whole process. And then finally, we got into 2020 and then we have COVID and then racial upheaval and racial violence. And then, we went right into the election and then the runoff. And then after that, some of us were involved with Karen Carter Peterson. She's running for Congress in Louisiana's 2nd district. So she's in a runoff. The race was in March, and then now she's in a runoff in April. So I was just going. And so I took about a long weekend and went to the mountains in Asheville, North Carolina. And that was my first time going there, and just didn't do anything, just no Zooms, nothing, even though I was getting ideas and tempted to, start emailing, but I'm like, no, just take a break. But it really did rejuvenate, really rejuvenate me and just kind of allowed some of that stress to roll off. So that was the best thing that's happened to me, I would say, this week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mata, what about you?
Well, Ramadan started. Yeah. And honestly, for me, Ramadan centers me a lot. It helps calm me down. The month of Ramadan always seems to make me feel, it's strange because some would say, why don't you just fast every month? But it's a different kind of feeling, right? It's a different kind of feeling when this is the holy month and this is what you're supposed to be doing. I'm not perfect. I have a long way to go to really get it totally right. But every day is a journey. Every month, every year is a journey, and of discovery and sort of finding my inner self and my inner peace and coming to that. And I've been able to work out the last 2 days with fasting. So we'll see. I'm hoping I can keep doing it throughout the month. And what they call it, first world problems, because growing up back home in Sierra Leone, people are going to the farm as they fast. Yeah. People are, we're cleaning, we washing clothes in the river as they're fasting. Taking the rice, taking the husk out of the rice, taking the husk off the rice, off the grain. You're doing it by hand and you're pounding it, and you have to pound it in such a way that the husk comes out without you breaking the rice into pieces. That's hard work. And people are doing this during fasting in the tropics, hot. And I'm sitting here going, oh my God, I hope I can work out. Yeah. It's I had to think about that. And I was because I had put this long post about anybody want to be my partner, my workout partner during Ramadan, because it's going to be so hard to work out. And
you got crickets, didn't you?
Got crickets. And it was after I posted that, I said to myself, really, Fatmata? Really? You need somebody to motivate you to work out. When you're in your house, you don't even have to leave the house. You can be in it. Either if it's too cold, you can put on the heat. If it's too hot, you can put on the air conditioning. Chill, work out and sweat for an hour, go lay down. People have real issues, real problems. And so I was just you know what? Stop it. Just do. So I'm doing. So I had to be God, forgive me for this nonsense, because the people out here even here in the US, having to work construction in the heat, right? In the cold. Mm-hmm. And here I am with my, privileged self. Somebody I need help to work out and do a little bit of dancing around my kitchen, jump rope. So that's what happened to me this week. And so it's
Yay.
like a realization, or an awakening or reawakening that, Chick, you have a good life,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You know, JoJo.
Yeah. But before we go there, Ramadan reminds us.
Vaccine.
Oh, you did. But oh yes, at the tell us again where you got your vaccine.
I got my first shot at Islamic Center of Maryland. They're doing this program within an organization called Resolve. They're doing this faith and community program, and it's so helpful. Like, you walk in there, and there's such a diverse group of people, by race, faith, gender, you name it. All types of people showing up to get this thing done for them. And it was just amazing to see. And I had to do a live just so, of course, I couldn't pan to show people because, privacy and all that. But it was just so beautiful to see. And the work they're doing is just amazing. And they really need help. So if people want to help, please help, because they need it. They need doctors, pharmacists to help volunteer. They need funding so they can have this program on a regular basis, at least until we are all vaccinated and whatnot. It was great. And it hurt a little bit after, not while they were doing it, after, but I was determined. So I worked out the next morning.
Good for you. And that's such a beautiful color too. I had to throw that in there. The coral and orange you have going on.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And the fact that you mentioned Ramadan reminds me and you to tell our audience that we're going to be starting a little late for the next 4 to 5 weeks during Ramadan.
Yes.
Yes. It's going to vary, maybe 8:30, 8:45.
Because right now we're breaking our fast around 7:45 or so. But it's going to get later as the month goes along, and it's going to go past 8 p.m.
Yeah.
So I want to be able
to. And we want you to eat.
And I have to pray.
Pray, grab your snack, grab your meal.
Because the reality is, I could probably be here and drink a shake, and that's eating. You're still breaking your fast, right?
Sure.
But I have to pray. So at 7:45, 8 p.m., I need to be praying. And so I cannot wait. I can wait on food. I can get some to drink and a shake, and while we're doing this, but I can't pray during this. So we may have to come in late. We'll let you know. Probably start.
Oh, no, we coming in late.
We're coming at 8:30. Okay, so we'll start doing this at least until May the 13th at 8:30 p.m. And then we'll come back to our regular schedule.
Sounds good.
What about you, JoJo?
Huh?
JoJo, I was asking JoJo what happened to her this week
I can't think of anything. I've been stalling.
That's why she's been bringing all this stuff up.
Yeah, because I can't think of anything. So we'll try again next week.
What's your shirt say?
Oh, my shirt says "My vote matters." Yeah, because it does matter. Our vote matters, and I think that's a message we want to emphasize, and we'll close out with that message that your vote absolutely matters in the face of everything that's been happening, the voter suppression tactics, the actual laws in place. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep voting. They're going to have to grab our vote from our grip, because I was about to curse, from our tight grip. They're going to have to steal it from us, kicking and screaming, beat our heads in, whatever has to happen. But they're going to have to fight us really, really hard to take this vote from us. Don't give it away.
And Joe, where can they find us?
Who, us?
People, yeah, where can they find us?
You mean Black Diaspora Voices? Are you talking about Twitter at diaspora_voices, and Black Diaspora Voices on Instagram, and Black Diaspora Voices on YouTube, and Black Diaspora Voices on Facebook? You mean that?
Just that.
Okay. And the podcast is still coming. I've been a little tired, so it'll get going soon though.
She's a trooper. She's a worker bee. This woman, you people have no idea what she does behind the scenes. And one day I'll do a live just to talk about all that she does to make this thing work and happen. I'm so grateful to her. I'm so happy that she's with me.
Yeah.
With us.
Wrap up the show.
Yeah. She doesn't like that stuff. She don't like that stuff. That's why I do it.
Wrap it up.
Sorry.
Thank you, Robyn, for joining us. It was a pleasure having you.
Pleasure. Thank you
I was
so
looking forward to you last week, but both of us had a little issue last week, so it wasn't you. It was actually really me.
No, I was getting ready to go out of town, so I appreciate it. I don't know why. It's like the older I get, I'm like, don't book any, like if you can help it, don't try to do anything like the day before and the day after you come back from vacation, because it just puts you in such a crazy, and I'm just like, when you're younger, you like pack everything up until the point you're getting ready to leave, and I'm like, this doesn't work anymore for me.
Forget pack. When you were younger, go to work. Like I used to go to work from 7 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. and then go shower, go out, come back and go to work at 7:30 in the morning. What?
Remember those days? Oh
man.
Nowadays, I'm sitting up in here laying on the couch going.
I need like a week to get ready to go out.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we thank you.
Thanks
for allowing us into your life this evening, for allowing us in your kitchen, in your living room, in your dining room. And JoJo, what do you say?
Don't forget the laptop.
And your laptop, wherever your laptop is. Thank you for letting us there. And we want to say have a good night, have a blessed evening, and a good week. We'll continue to see you in Black Diaspora Voices, and we'll see you next week for another interesting and engaging conversation. We promise every week we will have something that is of interest to you. But like we always say, please let us know what you want to hear about, what you want us to talk about, who we want us to bring up to have a conversation with us, because we are here to provide to you. We are here to serve this group. This group is for us, by us, and about us. And because of that, Black Diaspora Voices is about Black people, for Black people, and by Black people, and from all Black people from all walks of the earth. So thank you very much, and we appreciate you, and have a good night. Safe good night.
Good night.
Night.
And thank you, Robyn.
Thank you.